There's a short video clip from the Nine News network in Australia and another one from the BBC network about the devastating fires in Australia. The government's initial response, of course, as everybody knows, not only those people in Australia but worldwide, was zero. Our Prime Minister was on vacation in Hawaii, so he obviously didn't care. The government's response has been created by the spin doctors in a manner that costs the government almost nothing, looks good to the city people, 85% of the electorate, and delivers virtually nothing to farmers. The video that follows is voice overlaid by a radio broadcast that went out to the eastern states of Australia, 28 to 40 network stations at various times, talking about the government's program and the irrelevance to those that have lost everything and to the farmers who have been and are devastated.
Good evening. The bushfire emergency gripping our state is heading into uncharted territory. A catastrophic fire danger warning has been issued for the Hunter region and for the first time in history for Greater Sydney. The danger day is Tuesday, but people need to act now. Emergency crews are warning they may not reach you if you leave it too late. And the fire threat in the rest of the state is far from over.
Now, what's happening in Australia is unprecedented. The bushfires have killed 18 people. They've killed close to 500 million animals. They're over twice as big as the Amazon forest fires, and they're exerting extreme political pressure on Prime Minister Scott Morrison. Earlier, he was heckled in Cobargo in New South Wales. There, 2 people have died and many homes have been lost. The Guardian has compared its main street before and after the fires, and its residents wanted to talk to the Prime Minister.
You're out, son. You are out. Not inappropriate. Bye. Come.
About the people who What about the people who have nowhere to live?
And here he is meeting another angry resident who wants to talk about more support for the Rural Fire Service.
Hello. How are you?
I'm only shaking your hand if you give more funding to our RFS. So many people here have lost their homes.
We need some beds.
We need more help.
There's the Prime Minister shaking a woman's hand and then walking away as she continued to talk about the help her community needs. He then encountered a firefighter who was equally unenthused at the idea of shaking his hand.
What I'd like to talk about is the disaster grants, and I call it a sham program that the government's come up with, and I'd like to talk about some of those things on air today and then spread them a little bit further, because there are many farmers that are in desperate situation, and the government's programs, mostly smoke and mirrors to make them look good, Peter, to the 85% of voters that live in cities that finally have some sort of sympathy for farmers. Normally they don't think about it too much, although I think there's been a fair bit of sympathy and empathy about the drought and then of course the bushfires. So the government of course did nothing for the longest period of time. Then they came up with a little type of aid program, and then they increased it. But Peter, the problem is it's the conditions of those grants. And so if you don't have any objections, I am videoing it, but I can destroy that video if you object to it. But after we're finished with the program and talking about it, maybe we can discuss it then.
All right, mate. Yeah, I don't see any problem with that. It looks like from where I'm sitting, that they're actually sitting on their hands.
Well, here's the problem, Peter. It's to satisfy the electorate that they appear to be doing something. And the electorate in Australia is city people. We are the most citified, or more people live in cities in Australia than any other country in the world besides city-states. So 85%, and I just pulled that out of my hat, but 85% of Australians live in cities. And therefore, the government doesn't have to satisfy farmers or anybody in the country. They only have to satisfy people that live in cities. So they don't actually have to do anything concerning farmers for those 85% of the people that live in the city, Peter. They only have to look like they're doing something. And that's exactly what they've done. They've come up with a program called a disaster grant to help farmers. Number one, it does not apply if you lose your crop. Okay, can't get a penny, Peter.
It's ridiculous.
Okay, number two, if your business suffered severely and you had no sales, and I'll expand on that in a minute, can't get a penny, Peter. What you can get is, you can get a subsidy for hiring labor or equipment to clean up a mess. Okay, that's the first thing. If you've got to hire somebody, you can get assistance for their labor cost. Okay, so assumably, you know, you've got something that burnt down or whatever, and they'll help you, give you a little pittance to hire somebody to take it away. Disposal of damaged goods, Peter. Whew, big one, yeah. Repairing a building, as long as that building is used, you know, for your farming operation, like useful. It's nothing to do if you lose your house or anything like that, that you don't apply. You don't satisfy the requirement, Peter. Repairing fencing. Well, Peter, all fencing's steel these days. It doesn't burn. Okay, maybe some horse farms, you know, some stables use wooden fences, but farmers don't. Reconditioning essential equipment or repairing it. Well, most equipment is mobile. Some of it's not, like pumps or things like that, but you know, you move it. So it goes on. Health assessment, Peter. It just goes on and on and on. But let me give you an example. We're located here in the Hunter Valley, and there's I've heard various figures, up around 250 vineyards in the Hunter Valley. We all essentially lost our grape crop this year because of smoke taint. Okay, so they were not, we harvested a small amount and appeared to taste okay, but according to the experts, if there is smoke taint, it doesn't show up. Thank you. I just got a cup of coffee here, and since I'm doing a video, Peter, you know, they say, the experts, that smoke taint doesn't show up for a period of time. The smoke produces some type of chemical that combines with the sugar, and until the sugar is fermented, like to make wine, it doesn't release it. And when it does release it, apparently it doesn't give it a smoky taste, gives it a taste that's more like a stale ashtray. So, yeah, the general wisdom in the Hunter was not to harvest, and I think that's pretty much what happened. On top of that, for 4 months, we were immersed in smoke here. Coming from Sydney, the Gosper Mountain fire took 3 months to get here, Peter, but the winds bring the smoke all the time. The Kerry Ridge fire, you know, started nearly 100 kilometers from here, took 3 months to get here. It got here, down the road here, but we got the smoke all the time. So the vineyards in the Hunter had a severely reduced visitation. So their business was way, way down. Do you think that is eligible for support, Peter? I'll give you one guess.
I'd say no.
Yes, and you'd be right. No. There was a big article in the Argus newspaper about some of the big guys, McWilliams Wine, some of the biggest wine companies in Australia. They went into receivership. They're staggering, and they're going out of business, Peter. They lost 100% of their crop, and McWilliams has, of course, wineries in many other areas, but I'm talking about even large wineries around here, leave alone the small guys, Peter. They lost 100% of their crop, and they had no business at the cellar door to sell wine. Okay, so now that's the first thing, Peter. Okay, smoke and mirrors. Okay, nothing applies here in the Hunter Valley. The other thing is, if you think you can apply to them, say, oh, I'm a farmer, you know, I want to apply for this grant. Oh, no, you're not. You're a small business, Peter. Despite the fact,
for goodness sake.
Despite the fact that probably 90% of the vineyards in the Hunter Valley, all except one or two big guys, a few big guys, nobody has a winery. Some don't even have a cellar door, but nobody has a winery. So the only thing we have on the property is a small cellar door and, of course, the grapes.
Yeah.
But despite the fact that we send the grapes out and we have it made into wine and bottled, and it's stored somewhere else often, as it is in our case, we're a small business, Peter. We're not farmers. We're a small business.
So going and getting all the grapes off, that's not farming.
That's not farming. No, it's not farming, Peter.
I think they're fudging. That reminds me of the old marbles game. You know, you're fudging.
Yes, this is smoke and mirrors. The government is spending so much. You talk to the average property owner here, they have probably spent 50 hours on the telephone with various people that administer these programs to be taught, to be told that they don't apply, Peter, that they don't qualify. The only increase in employment that's happened is all the government people that have to deal with all the farmers and small business people that call to be told they don't qualify. Okay, so it's clear, and this is not just in the Hunter, Peter, this is everywhere, okay, that this has happened. So if you're out somewhere, you know, even if you're a wheat farmer and you lost your crop due to bushfire, and you're in a designated disaster area, Peter, the government designates you a disaster area, as we are in, we're all designated disaster, but that means nothing. It's a government smoke and mirrors program. So finally they tell you, look, you're not a farmer. You know, you might produce grapes and turn them into wine. You're a small business. And so you go to the small business one, Peter. There's a disaster grant for small business. And you know what it covers? Payment for tradespeople to conduct safety inspections. That's number one, okay, that it's applicable to the grant. Number two, equipment and materials required for cleanup. Okay, you go on and on. There's nothing, Peter, about losing your harvest. It specifically excludes any consideration for loss of income. Okay, and it just goes on and on, Peter. You can spend hours, hours filling out forms and talking to government people. Firstly, I don't know where they live, probably in Sydney or Melbourne or somewhere, probably can't even spell farm, Peter, and they spend they spend an hour telling you you're not a farmer, okay? So it boggles the mind, but look, it's brilliant from the government's point of view. They don't have to do anything except put up the appearance of helping, and that's all they've done. They just put up the appearance of it. And they've satisfied 85% of their electorate. Look what the government's doing. Isn't it fantastic? You know, they're helping all these farmers. And they're not doing anything. And so anyway, Peter, that's what I want to do. I'm going to put it together on a YouTube and get it up so that more than you and I, will become aware and familiar with what's going on in this entire program, Peter.
Sure. Understood.